because I tend to realize we can use fear instead of letting fear use us. Just like in any situation from life, how can I use this to my advantage? So instead of letting the fear use me and scare me out of not taking the step to be an entrepreneur, not scale the business, not get a coach, not do this, that, and the other, I'm going to let the fear of my potential reality of being that 85-year-old man on that rocking chair light the fire under my seat that says, hey, Carlo, if you don't do anything different, that's reality. That could be your potential reality. You need to get going. And like an instant, it gets me to go to work, put it in the action steps, do what I need to do, so that way I can avoid that potential life of being an 85-year-old man not doing anything.
Yeah. Sounds like you're saying the focus is more on thinking about who I am becoming rather than what I am accomplishing. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Own the Exit. I'm Caleb, your co-host, here in the studio with Aaron. What's up, Aaron?
How's it going, Caleb?
Yes.
I'm Aaron, your co-host, so thanks for tuning in to Own the Exit.
Yeah, and a lot of business it's a mindset game.
Oh, 100%.
And I think one of the most underutilized things, specifically for mindset and for personal development and getting your mind right, is actually having a coach, someone who has tools and experience and the ability to actually help you get your mind right. And so that's the reason why I wanted to have the guest that we have today. And I'm so excited we got this landed and worked out to get Carlo Taormina on this episode. So our guest today is an absolute master at what I would say, again, is the number one most important aspect of building a successful business, and that's your mindset. And we talk about mindset on this show a lot, but I'm thrilled to have Carlo as a guest. Carlo's story is extremely powerful, going from depressed, never leaving his house, to running now a successful personal coaching business. And it all kind of started when his brother basically forced him to get out of the house and go on a trip. And so Carlo has since then conquered depression through different techniques and strategies and habits that he now coaches other high achievers in. And so I'm super excited to have Carlo and welcome him to the show. Carlo, thanks for being on Own the Exit, man.
Thank you, Caleb. Thank you, Aaron. It's going to be a really good episode. I hope you guys are ready for a wild ride, but this is going to be fun. Thank you again so much for letting me speak and share my story, and ready to get into it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Let's go.
No, thanks so much.
Let's go. Yeah. So I want to just start, Carlo, by asking a little bit about, so we mentioned, you and I've chatted a little bit kind of in preparation for this interview, which I'm excited we were able to get this landed, by the way. But we've talked a little bit about your story, specifically around how you'd sunk into a state of like depression, despairing of life, all that kind of stuff. And it was your brother that sort of shook you out of that. I'd love for you to share just a little bit for our guests, kind of what you shared with me about that part of your story.
Yeah. So, to give everyone context, I was laying in bed every day for a year in 2021. Things were not looking up for me. I had what I like to call my hell week, which is basically like everything that I thought could go wrong in my life did go wrong within a span of just 7 days. And, right before Christmas, right before my birthday, I got fired from a job. I had a really bad back injury, and my L5S1 vertebrae actually had a herniated disc in my back where I couldn't walk for a period of time. And then to add more insult to injury, there was this young lady I was seeing at the time who, was saying, I love you so much. We're going to get married. We're going to do the whole 9 yards. We're going to have kids. And I was like starstruck by it. I was like, okay, this seems legit. One day in this week, she calls me and she's like, hey, I want to break up. And then I also had my own online personal training business that I had started. I wasn't doing it full time. Obviously, I still had the job, but the business was bleeding me dry. I was spending more money than I was making. I was going into debt. And within this 1 week, I had all these things hit me all at once. I didn't know what to do or how to react, how to respond to it. So in response to it, I literally didn't do anything. Like, I quit. And it led me to have a lot of limiting beliefs. I told myself I was a loser. I was a failure. I'll never amount to anything. And no matter what I touch will turn to dust. And then from that experience, I just had this self-hatred about myself. I avoided looking in the mirror, literally. And I kind of accepted that, maybe there are losers, maybe there are winners, and I'm just a loser. Some people make it, some people don't. And maybe I'm just not one of the lucky ones. So what I did was nothing. I was really apathetic. I refused to eat because I just had no appetite. I didn't care about anything. I lost 13 pounds. I'm a pretty thin dude, so imagine this 13 pounds lighter. So I was just lost, overwhelmed, and I did not know what to do. I thought I had no options. I had no fulfillment. I had nothing to look forward to. And I just thought to myself, what's the point of trying? So through this hopeless, unfulfilled feeling, it was no longer a question of if, but when I decided to take my own life. And this is going on for an entire year. So when my brother, came to me, he was like, because we were out to lunch that day, and they begged me to come out to lunch. My whole family did. And at the time, I lived with mom and dad, which was, in my 20s, living with your parents, that was another reason for me to feel jazzed about myself. So my family was like, hey, let's go out to lunch, come do something different. And I was like, no, leave me alone. I don't want to do anything. They forced me into it. And I was like, okay. I had the most awkward lunch of my life, just sitting there essentially feeling like I'm by myself at this table, even though my family is surrounding me. I'm just not engaging in the conversation. And then my brother, towards the end of the meal, he's like, hey, come ride home with me. It'll just be you and me. And I'm like, okay, perfect. So we're driving home, and then we're in the driveway. We park, and then he says to me, before we get out of the car, he's like, all right, man, what are we going to do? How are we going to help you get out of this situation? Because we've been trying everything. We don't know what else to do. So please tell us, what can we do to help you? And I said to him, there's nothing you can do. I am a goner. Stop trying, quit, because I already quit on myself. So, there's no point. And he just couldn't accept that. So he said, look, I'm your brother. I would do anything for you. You're my brother. Would you do anything for me? And I said, of course. I didn't realize that was a trap, because my brother was like, okay, I got a favor I need from you. And I was like, okay, perfect. Well, what do you need from me? What is it? What's this favor? And he says to me, I need you to get out of here. Do something different, go on a trip, do something different. I can't stand seeing you here. And then I was kind of shocked by it. I was like, you know how hard it was to leave bed to go out to lunch with you to the Cheesecake Factory today? Now you want me to go on a trip? I can't do this. But then the next thing he said to me really resonated, and it was as if time stood still and I was kind of frozen in this car. And it was like just myself with the universe. And what he said to me was, what do you have to lose? And I let that question kind of process a bit. And then I was like, you know what? I really don't have anything to lose. I'm literally at rock bottom right now. I have nothing else. So I did two things that I didn't consciously do. It just kind of came up. As I was processing this question, the first thing I did was I just kept saying to myself over and over and over again that I don't want to die. I don't want to go. I just want to stay. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And I kept saying that over and over again in my head. And I shifted my focus to the life I was living, to the guy who was unfulfilled, had these limiting beliefs about himself. He said it wasn't good. He said he wasn't good about anything. He couldn't do anything. And I shifted my focus to everything I wanted, the life I really wanted, to help people, to be the ambitious guy again, the funny guy. And I started thinking about him. And then the next thing I did was I imagined I struck a match from a matchbook. And I see this tiny little flame. And this tiny flame represented the real me. The funny guy, the ambitious guy, the person who would take his shirt off his back to give it to you if you're cold. And even though it was so small, it was still me down there. It was still like the real me. And that little flame kind of sat in my gut. And the more I thought about it, it just grew and grew and grew, to at which point I felt like it kind of consumed me, where I was like this fireball. And then I said yes. I was like, you know what? I'll go on this trip. I'll do it. And then my brother got really excited. He's like, okay, good. Well, where do you want to go? And I just blurted out the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, let's go to Florida. In November, depending on what Virginia wants to do, because Virginia's temperamental, but sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot. During that time, it was a pretty cold November, so I didn't want to go anywhere else that was cold. So I was like, okay, let's just go to Florida. He said, okay, well, when do you want to go? And I was like, soon? And then he asks me, do you want to go alone? Do you want me to come? What's the deal? And I said, please come with me. I don't want to do this alone. Please. I'd probably just like lay in bed the whole day in the hotel room. So I need you. He's like, okay, perfect. Don't worry about a thing. I will send you the details tonight. And that was a Sunday. Our plane left on a Tuesday. Yeah. And from this one decision I made, from this one moment, from one action step, it literally put me on the path to finding my breakthrough. Now, originally, I didn't see it that way because day one in Florida was agony. I was like, why are we here? Why did I hop on this plane? It was immediate regret. And we're in West Palm Beach, Florida, which neither of us knew. We didn't know if it was on the East Coast, West Coast of Florida. He literally picked it because it sounded sexy. That's the only reason why he picked West Palm Beach. So we're in West Palm Beach, and like day one, I just want to lay in bed all day. I don't want to do anything. And my brother's like, let's go rent jet skis. Let's go to the beach. Let's go on a boat. Let's go fishing. Let's rent bikes. Let's do all this stuff. None of that. Day two, same thing. He wants to do all these things, and I don't want to do a thing. And the most exciting activity we did up to that point was we went to like a local pharmacy, bought a deck of cards, and played Go Fish in the Park. That was like the adrenaline of the trip so far.
Nice.
And that's all I wanted to do.
That's a rush, man.
Oh, dude, you have no idea.
Go fish at the park.
If you have any twos and I get them bitches, like, it's game over. So that was the extent of the trip up to that point. And I remember, just being in my little crappy state. We were sitting in front of this cafe or restaurant right in on a patio table. And we're just chatting. And then all of a sudden he puts his phone down. And my brother's like, okay, I booked us something to do. I'm not telling you what it is. Just shut up and follow me. And I was like, wait, what? Don't say a thing. Don't ask any questions. Just shut up and follow me. Now, for me, in that current state, I was anxious as hell. I didn't know what to do, what to think. I was like, are we going to some nightclub? Are we going on a boat, going deep sea fishing? Are we going to join a cult? What's going to happen? And my brain is trying to process this. And he's not saying a thing. We're just walking. And we're walking. And all of a sudden, we're at this stoplight, and I'm just waiting for the crosswalk sign or light to turn green. And I'm just kind of passing time, just looking at my surroundings. And right in front of me, right across the street, is the West Palm Beach Convention Center. Now, I didn't really think anything of it, but then I looked down, and I saw the sign sticking out from the ground. And the sign says, Tony Robbins, unleash the power within. And then I looked at my brother. I was like, you didn't. He didn't say anything. So it just so happened to be, and I consider this divine intervention, divine timing, that, somebody that we definitely look up to, because I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. I've always been involved in personal development, like we were talking about before we started recording the show, is, all that personal development. So I've always been a subscriber to that. And we, of course, knew Tony, but we didn't know he was down there. We didn't know he was hosting this event, specifically at that place, at that time, during that week. So we were kind of taken by surprise. And legit, the only reason why we were there is because my brother was legit just looking what to do in West Palm Beach. And that was like one of the things that came up on TripAdvisor or something. So out of divine intervention, it was like I needed to go to this event. Now, as I'm sitting there, for everyone, I'm pretty sure everyone knows who Tony Robbins is, but for anybody who doesn't know, the events are massive. You're in a room of like 10,000 people. And I remember sitting in my chair at this event before it even started. I felt like I had that feeling of time standing still again and being alone. And I just kept saying to myself, I was like, I hope this event isn't like a concert, or a vacation experience where I might have fun now, but when it's over, it's like, okay, back to reality. Well, what I would say is from that one decision of hopping on a plane that led to one moment to taking action, I'm so glad I made that choice, went to that event because it's like I was destined to go there. And the experience I got, I legit found the real me again. I found my happiness. I found my purpose because I always knew I wanted to help people. I just never knew exactly how I was going to do it. From that moment, it was crystal clear. It was like I had this telepathic communication with the universe that was like, Carlo, this is what you're supposed to do. You're not done yet. You're going to help people who have these limiting beliefs like you did, who don't have fulfillment like you did, who lack the motivation like you did, and you're going to help them. Whether it be in business, personal life, whatever, you are going to be the voice. You are going to shine that light. And it hit me like a shock wave. And ever since that day, I dedicated my life to doing just that. I transitioned my online personal training business to more like life coaching, peak performance coaching. I became a keynote speaker. And, none of that would have been possible without the nudge of my family, me making that decision, and the universe just telling me I needed to be in that place at the right time.
So let's say that's such an amazing and powerful story, Carlo. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for really digging in and giving us a really good idea. And there's so many things that we could pull out from your story as takeaways for our audience. But I want to ask you this because it's as an entrepreneur, a listener to Own the Exit. There's undoubtedly folks in our community that are listening to your story and they're thinking, man, like that's where I am, or I feel myself, maybe not with all the same details, but I feel myself sinking a little bit. What would you say is the one piece of wisdom that you would say to someone who feels like they're sinking right now, whether it's in their business, their personal life? What's the one thing that they need to do to get momentum back?
Yeah. So I would say, there's so many things I can speak on, but what I realize when I see my clients, when I speak to people, is like the common denominator people have is why they feel like they're sinking is because of what they tell themselves in their head. Between their two ears, they just keep telling themselves all these limiting beliefs about themselves of why they're not capable, why they can't start a business or scale their business, or why they can't leave their corporate job to do anything, right? They have this story that keeps telling themselves all these different things. And that's what keeps us stuck. And then when we feel stuck, we feel like there's no way out. When we feel like there's no way out, that's where we start to kind of go deeper and deeper into the darkness and the negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that really helped me, that I teach my clients now and I speak about it in my keynotes, is understanding what a belief is and why it's holding you back. So I understood, once I deconstructed it, a belief is just a story we are telling ourselves with enough emotion fed into it. So once I really thought about that, I was like, that really makes sense. And then I started to think about the concept of like religion, right? I just use this as an example. I know it's kind of like a woo topic depending on who you talk to, but I just looked at the blanket statement or the surface level of religion. And I was like, there's a million religions out there, and every person who is a follower of a specific religion, they know in their hearts that is the one. That's the one and only. That's the divine religion. That's right. And everything else might be a little fluffed, might not be as accurate as the one I follow. And that's totally cool. People, like, nothing against religion, but people are willing to die for it. People are willing to take their lives for it. People are willing to go to war for it. And that's literally happening legit overseas right now. And it's been happening since the dawn of man. It's because they believe in something so much with so much of an emotional investment that they're willing to go to extreme lengths to protect it. So when we kind of look at our own lives and our own beliefs, and then we say to ourselves, oh, I'm not good enough. And then our brain is kind of like this filing cabinet showing you evidence of when you tell yourself, I'm not good enough. Then it's pulling out all these files from the filing cabinets showing you, like, here you go, John. This is why you're not good enough to start a business. you failed here in your life, and then you also failed here. And then when you have this negative feeling towards it, this emotion, you start to believe it. And then that's what essentially to a person, what makes it truth. But in reality, it's not true at all. It's just your brain is just showing you things from your past. It's just showing you things to protect you, to maybe keep you in a safe comfort zone, maybe not start the business because you're comfortable right now, you're safe. And that's all your brain's supposed to do. So how I overcame those limiting beliefs is first I needed to see it. Like I needed to write it down on paper. Okay, I'm not good enough. That was my biggest limiting belief. I'm not good enough. I am a failure and I will never succeed at anything, no matter what I try. And that's what I told myself on a daily basis, on a constant loop. And then just below that, I wrote down why that limiting belief is ridiculous and why it's so idiotic and why it's so false. And then once I started thinking about it, I was like, it is literally impossible to fail 100 out of 100 times. It's impossible. If I am shooting a basketball and I attempt 100 shots from the free throw line, there's no way I can miss 100 unless I'm intentionally throwing the ball backwards. You know what I mean? But if I'm actually putting in 100% effort to sink the ball, I'm going to at least make one. So when I understood that logic, I'm like, okay, so for me to be a failure 100% of the time, that is so false. And what helped kind of bury that deeper for me is because it's one thing to understand something cognitively, to know something as truth, right? But it's another thing to feel it. So a good example I like to give people is if you're a smoker, you know smoking is bad, are you going to quit smoking immediately? Probably not. But if you actually felt it internally and felt it in your gut of how disgusting, how bad, how gross it is, I guarantee you're going to quit smoking. So what I would do is I would literally close my eyes and do this like meditation exercise. And this is what literally helped me overcome my limiting beliefs is I would go back in my past and I would reflect on all these moments where I felt successful, where I felt confident, where I felt accomplished. And I would literally relive these moments as if they were happening all over again. I'd really feel it. And this really like anchored it in for me that says, wow, I really am successful. I am confident. This is proof. This is showing my brain proof that says, hey, look, brain, I am these things. And that immediately disproved the limiting belief. And I do that for every single thing that I deal with, all of my limiting beliefs that I have about myself. I just keep reflecting because I understood about life, guys, that like whatever's wrong is always going to be available, but so is what's right. So once I started to start to look at the positive evidence and reinforced it and relived these things, it helped me destroy these things, these limiting beliefs, and gave me momentum to go forward, gave me belief in myself that I can go forward, gave me the permission to do so.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And, you know, as you're talking about these limiting beliefs, it just makes me think of how it's really hard or, you know, or can be challenging to even recognize that you have those beliefs. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, you know, because like you mentioned, you know, you're saying, okay, there's losers, there's winners. Maybe I'm just a loser. Like, is that actually the thought in your mind? Like, are you actually saying those words in your mind to yourself over and over again? Or is it more subtle, right? Is it more kind of subconscious? Because I feel like for a lot of people, I feel like everyone has a limiting belief in some area. Like where, like there, I feel like there's no limit to how we can expand our minds and continue to grow. Like even just in my own journey, you know, even in business, right? Like I could do this, you know, but I can't do that. But then a year later, it's like, oh, I'm doing that now, but I can't do this, you know, but then it just continues to grow, right? That's just one example. But in all these different areas, like how do you even recognize that you have a limiting belief? What would your advice be or thoughts on that?
Yeah, so how I would recognize it is because, like you mentioned before, you know, is it something that's super strong? Like, oh, you're saying it to yourself like this, or is it something more subconscious? Well, I would say that it's kind of all over the spectrum. It depends on how severe it is. You know, it could be, you know, something that's like maybe a thought here and there, or if it's like really constant, like it was for me. I think it can be both. How one can recognize it is just practicing self-awareness. Now, obviously, that sounds like a blanket statement and says, oh, just be self-aware. But if you really think about it, if I were to have this thought, because normally what we go about day to day is like, we have this thought, oh shit, maybe I can't start this business. Maybe I shouldn't strive to make 6 figures my first year. You know what? Maybe I can do that. It's not unrealistic. What we do is we tend to let life live us, and we think that's normal. And what I mean by that is that when we have these thoughts, of course it's normal to have these because we're human. We experience emotion. That's just what we do. But we think it's normal to have it kind of be a an antagonist, and like that's just the dynamic of life, right? What we don't understand is that we have the ability to question these thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
We can literally sit down with it and ask, why am I having this thought? Okay, then you're gonna get an answer. Then from that answer, you can ask a different question. Okay, well, if it's so unrealistic, what about these people that did it in the past? Okay, well, what did they do? And then once you just start asking yourself different questions, once you literally just sit with a thought, instead of pushing it away because it makes you angry or sad, or just let it affect you in general, and you try to fight it, but it just doesn't go away. What if you literally just invited it in and legit just ask questions, have a conversation? I know it sounds kind of crazy, but like once you have a thought, because I know I have them all the time, and I'm sure everyone listening has these thoughts, is I can't do something. Okay, why? Why? And if you really put in the effort to just have a communication with your conscious, with why these are happening, you're going to find answers. So I feel like once people just become a little bit more self-aware, then they can definitely get to the answers they want to get to. So that's probably my response of how we can really not only conquer it, but have a communication with it, how we can be aware of them, so that way we can keep the ball going forward instead of being stuck. And I hope that answers your question properly.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's almost like this essential, necessary component of like knowing and being able to really clearly define what it is that you actually want? Because sometimes limiting beliefs are, sometimes we can label limiting beliefs, or we can label something a limiting belief when it's actually we're internally pushing ourselves towards a goal that we don't actually care about or we don't actually achieve. And so it's actually our positive consciousness inside of us that's rebelling against us moving in that direction. And it's not actually a limiting belief about our ability to accomplish it, but it's actually us trying to tell ourselves, I don't actually want that. That's not actually important to me. That doesn't actually align with my values. So, what would you say is, a good practice for, let's just say, let's narrow it to an entrepreneur, right? For separating out what is a limiting belief and what's actually you're feeling forced into by whatever outside pressure you're feeling forced into pursuing something that you don't actually even care about.
Yeah, that's a good question. So how we can distinguish a limiting belief, and how we can, from what your words are saying, we're trying to do something that we're probably not even wanting to do, but we're feeling like we're forced to do. Something I understood is that sometimes when we make a decision, it's based on either fear or lack or something like that we think we need to avoid, something that's a negative force, right? What I understood, and I hope this is answering your question properly, and hope I'm understanding the question properly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but something I understood is that we tend to make decisions emotionally, but justify it with logic. And what I mean by that is, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I really want to start this business, but I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can shell out the money. I don't know if I should quit my job and simply go into entrepreneurship. Ooh, that's going to be kind of tricky. What if I just kept my job, my full-time job, and did this? What if I went part-time? What if I did this? And no matter what kind of predicament you kind of you put yourself into, it all comes from a place of fear or lack or something negative, where then it puts you in a position where you feel like you're forced to do something you don't even want to do and doesn't even align with your purpose. So people would say to themselves, okay, I want to start this business, but I don't know if I should leave my job. I don't know if I should go part-time. And then they start thinking to themselves, well, I really want to do this, But this logical part of me says, oh, I need X amount of money. And that's perfectly normal because we still need to put food on the table. But we tend to let something that is negative or lacking or of fear guide our decision making. And then when we're letting the fear essentially guide the decision making, you're going to find yourself being in a position that you don't want to be in. So a perfect example is me, when I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship, I would get this job at a gym, be a manager of a gym. I would be a property manager over here. It's like, I hated it, but I felt like it was something necessary I had to do because it came from a place of lack or of fear. And when I made that decision, I found myself being unfulfilled. I found myself I hated doing it. And I was moving farther and farther away from entrepreneurship and what I really aligned with and what really I felt my purpose was. And that would probably be my response to that question. And again, I hope I answered it properly. If I need to tweak on it, please let me know because I want to make sure I understood it.
No, it's great. My wife and I were having a similar conversation just within the last few days, just talking about emotions and their role, in decision making, and ultimately, like the goal of your brain firing an emotion is to get you to do something. It's to get you to act. And so, that fear emotion is to get you to run away or to fight. It's like fight or flight mechanism, right? And all of that, it's getting you to act. And so, what we were talking about is if you deny the action that the emotion is trying to get you to take, and you redirect that toward an action that's more in alignment with your value, then you can actually get your brain to start retraining what emotions it fires in certain situations, right? And so, you know what I'm saying? Like by simply not just acting according to the immediate emotion, but actually thinking about what do I really need to do in this situation? What's the actual action I need to take? And so but fear's a big one for a lot of folks, right? That fear is one that a lot of folks struggle with. I mean, I talk to a lot of people and they are the biggest challenge that they have is it comes down to fear, right? And so what's your one big tip for an entrepreneur who's struggling with fear? How can they overcome it quickly?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is a really fun little tool that I did myself. It really made an impact on me, and I started giving it away. I learned it as called the rocking chair technique, and I kind of expanded on it a little bit. If you are somebody who wants to go in entrepreneurship, but you're scared you're going to fail or scared of the rejection that you're not going to do well or anything like that, even though you want to do it, but you're just scared of what the outcome is going to be, what I tend to do is I would tell people to close their eyes and not only imagine, but feel as if you are an old man or old woman sitting in your rocking chair. And you're 85 years old, and you're just going back and forth, rocking in your rocking chair. And as you feel that you are this old person, I want that person to think that they lived life the exact same way they're doing right now. By not taking action, by not starting the business, by not making the sales call, by not putting content on social media, whatever the case may be. But them focusing on the specifics of not doing something that they want to do. And then their 40s pass by, their 50s pass by, 60s, 70s, all to at which point they're 85 and they're sitting in their rocking chair. And they literally did not do a darn thing different. And they were sitting with that pain, sitting with that fear, sitting with that unfulfillment feeling for all of these years. And then to expand on it, you pass away. And now you're in your casket. And you see your casket being lowered down from the ground. And from the gravesite, you see your family and friends surrounding you as you descend into the ground. And all of a sudden, you hear eulogies from your family and friends. And they're describing you. How do you want them to describe you? Ambitious, risk taker, high achiever, determined. The way you want them to describe you is the way you should be behaving right now. So then I have them open up their eyes after the exercise and they're like, oh my God, I got scared. there you go. Because I tend to realize we can use fear instead of letting fear use us. Just like in any situation from life, how can I use this to my advantage? So instead of letting the fear use me and scare me out of not taking the step to be an entrepreneur, not scale the business, not get a coach, not do this, that, and the other, I'm going to let the fear of my potential reality of being that 85-year-old man on that rocking chair light the fire under my seat that says, hey, Carlo, if you don't do anything different, that's reality. That could be your potential reality. You need to get going. And like an instant, it gets me to go to work, put in the action steps, do what I need to do, so that way I can avoid that potential life of being an 85-year-old man not doing anything.
Yeah. Sounds like you're saying the focus is more on thinking about who I am becoming rather than what I am accomplishing. Like that's
Exactly.
kind of the condensed, like do you take that technique? That's ultimately the outcome behind that technique is, or the overarching idea of that technique is, think more about who you are becoming or who you want to become or who you desire to become rather than what it is you're trying to accomplish. So we're going to move now, Carlo, into the exit round. We ask each of our guests who jump on the show the same 5 questions. And so we want to jump in and ask you those questions. So I'm going to start here with question number 1. We ask this one because in entrepreneur business podcast world, this is a trendy, vogue question to ask that all the cool people are asking. And we want to be a part of the cool kids table. So we ask this question every time, and it is this. Carlo, what is your all-time favorite business book?
So I don't know if this is going to be a cheat answer, but I'm applying it to my business, is the book, The Alchemist. And I think especially every single new entrepreneur or entrepreneur that's questioning their abilities or why they're doing this, read that freaking book, because literally it changed my life. Changed the way I'm seeing things. Like I knew about it, but it's like now it's like really being settled into my own life, is, the assurance that you can chase your dreams. You're going to go through lots of ups and downs. Anyone who's read the book The Alchemist or is going to read the book, I don't want to give anything away, but it's like once you realize that you have a divine destiny, but you put the work in and you just stay on the path, like entrepreneurship, and it's scary because we feel like we're failures. We feel like we're frauds when we're entrepreneurs. We feel like we shouldn't be doing this. We're not qualified. That maybe this is not meant for me. But once you read that book, you're going to realize, like, I am on the right path and I am following the way the journey I should be going on. And I know toward the end of it, if I pay my dues, and just do what the universe wants me to do and just listen to my gut, my intuition, I'm going to be just fine. So it's not necessarily a business book, but I'm using it in my business, The Alchemist.
That's awesome. The Alchemist.
Yeah, fantastic. Cool. Hey, question number 2. So we, we're this podcast is On the Exit. It's all about creating separation between ourselves and our businesses, creating passive income, things like that. What percentage of your income would you say is passive income versus actively earned?
Yeah, I would probably say it's not a big number at all. I mean, depending on what you think is big or not. But I would say probably between 20-25% of my business is probably passive income through course sales or through book sales. But the big chunk is legit just actual interaction, doing the work and coaching somebody. Or speaking.
Awesome.
Cool.
So what is one thing that you wish you could do more of, but your obligations to your business kind of hold you back?
It's a good question. Probably something I want to do more of is probably more speaking, but sometimes schedules may not align, or I have just too many coaching calls, which it's not like a problem. Like I'm glad I have these coaching calls, but sometimes when the book is a little full, it limits me to how many events I can speak at.
Right.
Okay. If you could go back in time, 18-year-old Carlo, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would tell that kid to not take himself so seriously. And I'll tell him, you're going to go through a lot of stuff, but promise you, it's working in your favor and it's going to help you become the best version of yourself. So use it to your advantage. Don't think that like the universe is out to get you, because it's going to help you. So just keep going, stay on the path. You're going to be just fine.
That's
Fantastic.
great.
That's really good. That's really good. So last question, Carlo, for you. What is your strategy for creating time freedom and financial freedom for yourself? Give one or
Absolutely.
two strategic tips.
Ooh, good. So, I mean, I'm never going to stop coaching. I'm never going to stop speaking. But something that I know I'm going to do to create the financial freedom for my own self is, how can I create something where I can speak to many instead of doing it one by one, using my time, using time for money, that exchange. How can I do something different? So for me, is I'm going to be creating a platform, not anytime soon. This is like my 5 to 10 year plan, is I'm going to create a subscription-based platform where people who are just like me, who lack the fulfillment, who want to feel better, who want to get the motivation back, who want to perform in their business or in their personal life to the highest level. It's going to be a subscription-based platform where people are going to have teams working for themselves, only for themselves, and I'm not going to say I'm going to sit back on a beach in Mexico, drink my cocktails, but that's going to be something that doesn't necessarily require my attention 24/7,
Mm-hmm.
but something that runs on a constant loop that I have employees doing for me and I have teams working, so that way they can help these people, these subscribers and clients in need, and I can work on bigger picture stuff and just have more time for myself, my family, and whatever endeavors I want to go on from there forward.
Right.
I love that, man. That's so good. One thing that stuck out to me too, what just quickly on that, was just how you said you're always going to be coaching and you're always going to be speaking and you're never going to stop doing that because because you want to do that.
Yeah.
And that's what's so awesome about entrepreneurship, is being able to create that life and be able to create that work. You're not trying to not work.
Yeah.
You're trying to do the work that you want to do and add the most value to others. And so that's really cool.
No, it is.
How can people get a hold of you, Carlo, with just, people want to get coaching, they want to go to your events. What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, Instagram is probably the biggest place or biggest area I congregate, honestly. So you guys just hit me up on Instagram, give me a DM. Of course, give me a follow. You probably see it in the show notes, but it is Carlo Taormina _life coach. And what I would love to do, if I may extend a free offer for anyone who's listening that wants to dive deeper, I would love to offer a free strategy call, no strings attached. I just want to help you if you want to dive deeper and overcome these limiting beliefs, lack of fulfillment, you want to gain that motivation back. I'd love to help you.
That's awesome.
All you have to do is just DM me, Own the Exit, just so I know that it's from this podcast episode you came from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So hit up Carlo Taormina at Carlo Taormina. Let's spell it out. CarloTaormina. Correct?
Yep. And then _life coach.
_life coach. We'll put it in the show notes for you. So look at that. Hit him up. Get a free strategy call with Carlo. Connect with him.
Very cool.
So we're out of time here. Carlo, anything before we wrap up? Anything else that you want our listeners to know?
Yeah. I would say to anyone right now, like if you listen to anything right now, if you take any notes, this is what I would tell you, is literally just keep going. I know it sounds super cliche and everyone probably says it, but like it's true. Just keep your head down, do the work, and eventually when you peek up for a view, you're going to be on top of a freaking mountain.
Let's go. That's awesome. Great. Thanks so much, Carlo. This has been really insightful and helpful, and I think it'll be very helpful for the listeners in the Own the Exit community. So it's been a great interview. Let's wrap up the show. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Own the Exit. Listen, if this episode impacted you in any way, why don't you share it with a couple of people? It's the best way for us to get the word out for Own the Exit is for you to share it. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and subscribe. Leave us a review. And we can't wait to be in your ear pods next week. So, all right.
Thanks, everyone.